Welcome to the Wednesday weekly team prosperity meeting. Today we're meeting in the CEO Club Lounge. Obviously, if you're starting a business from the ground floor, you are the CEO then, and you're the CEO going forward. So you need to start thinking like a CEO, organizing your mindset, your action, and your execution around being a CEO. Today's the 25th of August, so we're nearing the end of the summer. We got one more holiday coming up. Moving into September, this is going to be a great number of weeks for us. We've been anticipating this, doing some things during the summer to get ready for this, but this is the time of the year where you need to be as active as possible to, get your business to the point where you're starting to see the returns that you expected coming in. As we're building, we're going to get some separation. We'll have independent offices start to open up. People will start to do their own things. We want to stay collective as a unit. So from a managerial perspective, if you guys, as we're building out, you have suggestions on how to make some of this better, open line of communication goes both ways. Your voice matters. And, as we have new people coming in, they have new, ways of looking at some of the things that we already have in process. So understand that, we do want to hear from people coming in if their, opinion is constructive. Also, we've got the 12-week year going on right now, guys. And if you look at the 12-week year, it's a process. We understand that going through that, we learn a little bit of self-discovery. We reflect on things that work, don't work. But we understand how to ultimately go through the process to get better. And the cumulative effect of going through this a number of times really helps us build up to be, on a personal level, that producer, gain or setting and achieving goals, but also from a managerial perspective, you're able to help people, get out of those typical traps and pitfalls they fall into with a better perspective. And basically what the 12-week year helps us do from an organizational build out is it develops plans of action, and that strategy, that execution helps us avoid, doing all the things. And this is for our clients, our partners, the open marketplace. When you have a plan in place and you execute that plan, you get to a desired outcome. When you don't have a plan in place, you end up in this example right here, nobody ever wrote down a plan to be broke, fat, lazy, stupid. These are the things that happen when you don't have a plan. So the things that we do, like the 12-week year, just help cement what we're trying to accomplish on an individual and organizational basis. Couple things that continue to come up, guys. If you have taken a look at the gas station, the grocery store, inflation is definitely here. So when we understand inflation and what that does to our clients, wallets and pocketbooks, they have less purchasing power. So if they're on wages, they're on salary, they're on fixed income, they're really feeling the pinch right now. What we do in the education that we provide helps people understand what's happening and find solutions to this, because as we understand inflation, the answer to inflation is going to be higher interest rates. And so when we are in an ultra low interest rate environment like we were in for the past decade, that encourages debt, that encourages people to go out there and take risk. Now, as interest rates start to rise, we want our clients to be on the asset side of that, receiving interest instead of the debt side paying interest. So that's why we go out right now and we're so heavily concentrated on helping people deleverage out of debt to have the opportunity that as interest rates rise to make good money on the backs of their assets. We're in a bull market in financial services. That's evident everywhere from, an industry perspective. Companies are doing well here. You've got a lot of opportunity on a macro level. So once you understand that, and this goes back to what we were just talking about, you have to have a plan of action. Has to include concentrated activity that's going to get you the results. Waiting around, planning, preparing, it's all just a veiled look and a way to procrastinate. So understand that, when you elect to do something today, you're building your tomorrow. When you don't elect to do something today, you're still building your tomorrow, but it's not that tomorrow that you want. So, procrastination, like I said, just basically lying to ourselves. I'll do it now, or do it next week, do it next month. I've got that big thing that I'm going to do in 6 months. What are you going to do today that's building the path for yourself, your organization, your clients, your partners to get everybody where they want to go? Boring makes you money, guys. This isn't, every day is not going to be super exciting when you're building a business, because you have to look at the daily activity, the follow-up, the methodical approach that we have. And basically in the beginning, you have to have massive contact ability. This is the stuff that we talk about in the 12-week year. This is all the stuff that we don't want to do. It's uncomfortable. We'd rather put off, but we know it's the direct activity and the concentrated activity that's going to get us to our goals. So the number one priority we have in business is to make sure people know we're in business and what we do. We've tried to make this as easy as possible with an appointment funnel. So basically what we do is we lead with, lead magnets, ebooks, guides, something of value that gets people opting in to hopefully push them through a pipeline to get appointments for you guys. And that should funnel down to your personal plan that we talk about, that consists of 12 to 15 appointments every week. You can get this, and then you can build offices that have this. Everything will fall in place for massive distribution. And once again, an appointment is just someone with a reason to do something. You get 12 to 15 of those on your calendar every week. Teach other people how to do that. Watch what happens. Last week, you guys, we talked about time blocking for maximum efficiency, creating awareness for education at the top of your funnel, concentrating on certain personas, the lead pipeline as an actual factory, outcomes and not getting emotional about any specific one, and the best outcome obviously being a dedicated distribution partner. This week, we want to go back and highlight some things for sales, because a lot of things are happening, but all of that is manufactured by the upfront education and then the sales of certain products and services that continue the conversation. So in order to really increase sales, we want to do some certain things, understand some certain things, and implement that, because it's important that not just that we learn this stuff, but we go out and we implement it into what we're trying to do. Buyer's journey, guys, it's discovery, consideration, decision. Now, in each of those, you've got some things that you want to focus on, the problems, the solution, the value, need, features, things like that. But in the very beginning, and this is so important, people just want to go instantly to the solution, the product, the service. You got to get to know your buyer a little bit, and you've got to take them through this journey and help them understand why that decision step, that action step should be taken. In the very beginning, guys, we talk about being solutions-based, but in order to be solutions-based, you have to uncover a problem. And in the very beginning, you've got to stay on that problem, because if you skip that, go too quickly to the solution, you haven't done enough to pave the roadmap to get them there and help them understand why this is the solution for them, why you're the person they should be talking to. So that problem, the customer's problems, they have to be identified and they have to be evaluated pretty thoroughly in the beginning. Remember, the solution, once you uncover the problem and stay on that for a little while, is not the product. The solution is how we're going to get them to the desired state, that desired outcome that they're looking for. And when you understand that in sales, even small things like verbiage have a big difference, or can have a big difference in a kind of a make or break scenario. You want to understand that there's certain words you want to make sure is in your repertoire: solution, value, access, information, over some of those typical phrases like product, price, place, promotion, and also other words that really work as power words for sales success. This all is great verbiage to use when you're talking to a potential client who's only at the prospect stage. For ourselves, our partners, and our clients, it's the same thing. When we're talking to, our individual teammates, we're talking to potential partners, potential clients, what is it that that person wants? That's not our job. And if they don't know what they want, we really shouldn't be continuing the conversation. So what is it that they want? And then making sure they understand they have a choice. Whatever they want is going to be coupled with whatever they decide to do or not do. It's either going to get them there or not get them there. So ultimately, what do they want? It's their choice. And then what's their plan of action? This goes back to some of the problem stages, because a lot of people don't really, they might have a goal, They might have a desire, but they don't really have a plan of action to get there. So you have to be able to talk to people and make them understand that, hey, what you're doing up to this point with no plan of action, it's not going to get you anywhere close to where you want to go. Let me show you how you get there. And inside there, like I said, you've got a plan of action. Our plan of action has tactics, strategy. It's got a game plan there. A lot of other people's plans, even if it's, there, it doesn't have defined strategy, tactics, game plan points. So you have to understand that's digging into the problem. Maybe what they're doing and how they're approaching this is not working. And that's really the second part of this. Stop waiting for things to happen. Understand that you have the power of choice. And then on the other side, not leaving your future up to chance, actually defining what you want and an action plan to get there. And then understanding that if you're doing something, meaning the prospect on the other side, if they're doing something that doesn't work, they got to stop doing it. Because the brain, we talk about this, the brain loves routine. Even though it might not be the best for you, brain's going to want to continue to do whatever it is that you've been doing. So we have to kind of check them sometimes and make sure they understand that, hey, you've fallen into this routine. It's not getting you anywhere. Let me show you a better path. And you've got to create excitement around your solution. So once the problem's been uncovered and you guys have talked through that, and now you've got a solution, you got to create excitement around your solution. We talk about interest, for example. When somebody's paying interest or receiving interest, the ability to flip that and teach them how to, when they understand some of the money rules, how money works, become more financially literate, what interest can do for them in terms of compound interest, eighth wonder of the world. All of these things, as you're educating, it just can't be dry. You got to bring some excitement to what you're offering and what you're bringing to the table as far as solutions. $1,000, guys. I use $1,000 as kind of a metric in my presentations because somebody's paying $1,000 in interest. I want them to understand on the opposite side what they would have to have in place to receive $1,000 in interest. So remember, money's flowing. It's either flowing and working for us, or it's flowing and working against us. So you have to understand how to make people understand there's two sides to this. And either the money's not working for you, it's working for somebody else. And we have to teach them how to flip that, stop those financial drains, turn the tables in their favor. People also, from a prospect side, when you're talking to people on the other side, they've got to stop worrying about, potentially what they have to lose, start focusing on gain. And what that simply broken down means is we got to start making sure they understand value. If something costs something, but it's also an investment that's going to get you to an end point, or are we looking at it as an expense? Are we looking at it as an investment? Are we looking at it as something that has X cost or X value? What's it really worth in the long run? And then if somebody is having trouble, connecting the dots in terms of being able to understand why they're being held up from progressing, it's easy to walk them through this. If you've got a solution and it has X cost, based on what we're talking about today, if it was free, would you commit to start using it today? Number one, we want to understand the solution that we brought to the table, does it make sense to them? Not the price of it, but does the solution itself make sense? If so, now we want to ask another question. If X date in the future, whatever we've carved out as the roadmap with instructions, if they were able to accomplish whatever their goal was, we call it Y here, would this have been a very important conversation? And then also, would it be a valuable purchase and investment? And then question three, what's holding you back here? You have to make people sometimes understand. Lots of people have fixed mindsets. They get caught up on things like the cost and the price of things. You have to walk them through that. Because, it's easy to say, hey, if you could look back 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? Oh, if you're talking financially, things like, hey, buy stocks, buy Bitcoin, all these things that we've seen massively appreciate over the last decade. Same thing. If you're 10 years in the future, you don't want to be looking back and saying, hey, I should have taken action at that step because it would have gotten me here, versus looking back another decade with more regret. The power of choice. They've got options, guys, and doing nothing is an option. That is a plan. It's a plan for failure, but you have to understand so many people get stuck in ruts, routines. And when you bring something new and fresh, their instant, objection is coming from a fear factor. So you have to understand that, I can do, and we all can do whatever we want today. We choose to take all of our money and blow it. If we choose to not, make an impulse buy and invest that money, we can choose to do whatever we want today. The power of choice is so important because, number one, on the power of choice, if your client or your potential client's been going a certain way for so long, and you're introducing a new way and there's objections there, first of all, we have to bring it back. Well, if we do nothing and stay on the current course, which is ultimately your way, what's it going to look like? Has it worked up to this point? So why in the world going forward would a leading indicator tell you that it's going to work in the future? We teach people, and this is our main goal. We're trying to, through the education, the product, services, the technology that we offer, trying to teach people how to get their money right. And when you look at what's going on right now, being able to go forward, if people are not financially literate, they don't understand how money works, and they don't start making some alternate decisions, they're going to get run over by the economic conditions that are present both now and that are building for the future. If you understand, if you start to see certain factors come out every time, you see patterns coming out with your prospects, the best defense is always a good offense. So preemptively, what do a lot of these people bring to the table every single time? And once you start to understand that, preemptively overcoming objections, preemptively identifying typical concerns, addressing those, it helps. So actively listen to what people want, ask the clarifying questions, educate, don't oversell or just try to close the deal. Have a mutual conversation. You're not talking with them, you're not talking at them, and then clarify again if you understand them. So you're always clarifying, make sure you understand, because you don't want to go over and beyond and start talking about something they didn't ask you to talk about. And then this leads right into our next point. Too much information. This is a lot of new information. If you're going to go over and beyond with a bunch of extra information, it's going to paralyze the other side. So what is that? That's answering unasked questions, pitching unwanted features or benefits, misaligning your solutions to their plans or use case, and say anything that creates unnecessary risk in the prospect's mind. You want to answer the questions, yes. You don't want to go off on these tangents telling them everything that you know about the product or service. And then objections, what are the typical objections? If you understand these, then you understand where they're coming from and how to overcome these. You need to recognize and deal with these 9 objections. And the best way to learn how to do these, once again, going back to what we talked about before we started this meeting today, in the Facebook group, there's a lot of videos, files that you can look up. There's one Brian Tracy video that goes through all of these 9, what they are, why their prospects, leading with them, and how to overcome those. You need to handle sales objections like a professional. It's not an argument. And the more that you start to lose control of the conversation, the easier it's going to be for the other side to hit the object button, because now they feel like you're not even really on their side. It's become like a battle at this point. You need to welcome the objections. Every single person that probably is going to buy a product or a service from you is going to have an objection. Those are basically buying questions. If you know how to work through those, it's very easy. If you're going to get upset at somebody's objections, then you're not going to have many sales come through, and your revenue and your income and your growth is going to, lag behind what you expected and what you'd hoped for. Sales objections, really, we talked a little bit about this, but this is just reinforcing, you got to practice active listening. You got to repeat back what you hear to make sure there's no misunderstandings. Validate them. Say, hey, I understand. That's a valid concern. Ask follow-up questions. Leverage social proof. Lana's very good at this. All of your, infrastructure online, make sure that you help them understand, hey, I'm a real person. I have a real life. This is what I do. I'm passionate about it. Set a specific time and date for follow-up. Don't leave it in their hand. Don't send calendar links out and say, hey, just schedule it when appropriate, because you lose control. So you got to set that, take control, and anticipate sales objections and welcome them. And then finally, one of the other things that you can learn to do is learn how to reframe. So is that objection just a problem, or is it a That can be reframed as an opportunity. Is it a weakness? It can be reframed as a strength. Is it poor timing? That can be reframed as perfect timing. So a lot of these objections very simply can just be reframed and delivered back to the other side to help them understand why this is the right time, the right place to take action. And then finally, once you've handled these rebuttals, these objections, there should be nothing left. What part of your concern do you feel is still left unaddressed? Once you whittle all this down and address it, if you've done a good job, it should be a sale, because what you're doing is the right thing for the client. As long as you do that, you never have to worry about anything on the back end. And finally, guys, before we close this meeting down, you want to stay away time, energy, resources from these types of people who are just going to drain you. The shopper. I've already talked to a bunch of people about this. Well, my first question is, before I really know anything about your situation, what stopped you from moving forward? Because I just don't want to go through presentations just to go through presentations. The snail, they work at such a slow pace, who knows when they're going to ever make a decision. The hide and seeker, this person you're trying to communicate with, they don't answer back, they pop up, they might read an email, but they never answer anything else. The stacked deck, no matter what you present to them, it's not going to work for them. They've already made up their mind before they came into the meeting. And the criminal, somebody who's trying to do something, that doesn't align with your mission, your values, all of those things. So that's it that we have for this week, guys. We're going to continue to just work on our businesses week after week. See you next week.